Hello everyone and welcome to the MS-DOS project. I was super glad to see the positive response to my review of Ultima 2. So today I'll be talking about Ultima, Escape from Mt Drash. Escape from Mt Drash is really interesting for a number of reasons. The first is that it really isn't an Ultima. The first two Ultima games were written and created by Richard Garriott, with Ultima 2 being published by Sierra. Around this time, Richard Garriott had a close friend named Keith Zabalawi. I think that's how you pronounce it. He was listed as a programmer in the credits of Ultima 2. He even appeared in Ultima 2 on Planet X, saying that he had, quote, never done this before, whatever that means. Anyways, Zabalawi is writing a game in 1983 that he wished to have Sierra publish for the Commodore VIC-20, the predecessor to the Commodore 64. The issue was that the VIC-20 was a dying platform, as the far superior Commodore 64 had released the year before. The game would also require an 8K RAM expansion, making the game even less accessible to the average consumer. Well, it isn't super clear how the Ultima name got attached, but it was an agreement between Sierra, Garriott, and Zabalawi to help to try to boost sales. Mt Drash was a location in Ultima 1, so that was chosen as the subtitle, and the game was published. Still, however, Sierra was very skeptical of the game's ability to sell, and reportedly only manufactured enough copies to meet the current contractual requirements, about 3,000. They even denied its existence around this time, but Zabalawi confirmed it was produced and shipped to stores. Actual details about the game itself have been murky for years, and it's even rumored that Sierra just sold enough copies to break even and then buried the rest of the copies, like ET for the Atari 2600. One Vancouver, British Columbia retailer dumped unsold copies off a cliff, where one of the few known copies was recovered, and this seems to be where this rumor comes from, but no one really is sure. In the last 20 years or so, the game has become the holy grail for computer gaming collectors. The first copy is starting to crop up in the year 2000. There seems to be about a dozen or so copies known in the wild, till Indiana Jones finds the mother lode buried under the mountain, and they've been known to fetch multi-$1,000 price tags on eBay whenever they come up for auction. Despite the exceedingly rare nature of the game, luckily images of the original cassette are available on the internet for emulation, and the game has been ported to Windows with some upgrades, albeit without music, so we can actually play the game and judge it by its merits, and not just speculate on quasi-vaporware. The game instruction card included in the box says that you, some random Joe I guess, has been imprisoned in Mt Drash by the evil Garantrots, a fairly obvious allusion to Richard Garriott. They've stuck you in there with monsters for some sort of gladiator-style entertainment. You have to fight your way through 15 levels of mazes and monsters to earn your freedom. Well, once you boot up the game, it tells you to make ready, not get ready, for Ultima, Escape from Mt Drash, and you're greeted by this screen. So this looks a little funky, but it isn't too complicated. The part in the top left of the screen is the first-person 3D view of where you are in the maze. The top right has the overhead view with X's representing monsters, the O representing you, and a flashing icon representing the exit. The barely noticeable circles in the middle of the screen represent how many lives you have left. Not like it's super hard to keep track of 3 or less lives. And the bottom screen changes between showing what rank you are and displaying combat. More on combat in a minute. Now these ranks here, like what the heck is a Quimby? Or a Quester? Who knows? What is really impressive about everything is that the VIC-20 had no true bitmap sprite capabilities, so all the graphics had to be done with either the default or custom character sets, and this game was built using the default character set. Also, this game has some really good musical tracks. The game gets progressively more difficult as it goes along. At level 5, gems first start to appear and you must collect 1 to finish the stage. At level 7, you lose the ability to see paths on the minimap, then at level 9, the ability to see monsters. Eventually, even your directional compass disappears and you have to get both gems to complete a level. Luckily, there are several things that make this easier. First of all, the gems in level exit are always in the same spots in the corners, and you always start in the other corner, so figuring out where things are is not too much of a hassle. The mazes are semi-randomly generated, except for the last one, which is always the same, but there aren't too many different layouts, so if you play enough, you pretty much know them all. Most just end up being a run straight and turn left and run straight again until you get to the exit affair, so some levels are very short and easy as a result. Additionally, you have magic you can use, which I didn't figure out until after I'd beaten the game. Pressing B can destroy the wall in front of you, but apparently it isn't 100% effective, like it must just be if there's only a space between two different paths where there's a wall. Pressing S puts all monsters to sleep for 3 turns and plays this tune. And pressing T will teleport you somewhere else in the level. You only get to use 3 spells per level, so be wise on how you use them. The game is perfectly beatable without magic though, as I found out unintentionally. To move around the levels, you press the right arrow key to turn right and the down arrow key to turn left, and the enter key to move forwards. You can also press X to flip a 180. This seems rather odd, but it is really due to the VIC-20 only having 2 arrow keys and switching which direction they went by holding shift. Eventually you're bound to run into an enemy, and that brings us back to combat. So the combat screen here is interesting, but it isn't immediately obvious how it works, nor does the manual provide much help. Luckily, the wonderful people at Dino's Ultima page and Nerdly Pleasures helped explain this one better. So there are 3 keys which control 3 different stances in combat: Z, X, and C. You can also move left and right, but it didn't seem to appear super advantageous to do so. Basically, you have to push C to be in this pose at the right time and the right instance to kill enemies, as each enemy is only killed as the tip of your sword is in the right position in relation to their position. It mostly boils down to counting as they take 4 moves forward, and then right before they make their 5th, pressing C to kill them. The other 2 poses really only serve to get the monster to move into a better position if you mess up the first time. There's no need to rush the combat as the level timer freezes while you're in the combat, so patience is the key if you miss your window the first time. Unfortunately, if you time it too late, you'll probably die, because it takes about a second for the game to register your input, and since you're reset to the beginning if you die, losing a life really sucks. Also, if I lose a life, it says I've died. Gints? Okay. The combat gets much tougher once you get about level 9, as the monsters get wicked fast, and timing your counter thrust gets a lot harder. There were many times that I died in these last 6 levels, but I did get better as I kept playing. Luckily, it seems like the input delay seems to decrease the farther along you get, so that helps some. Once you do get the combat down, it becomes kind of easy, and you just lose lives if you miss the timing or just impatient. It still gets fairly tough around level 13 when you have to get both gems and the number of monsters gets way higher, but it never feels like a ghouls and ghosts brutality up there. One interesting thing to note is that the drawing of levels and your movements get noticeably slower as the game progresses. This is obviously due to the number of monsters moving around, so their moves have to be calculated every single time you move. And when you kill monsters in a level, it does speed back up. Just funny to see the difference a few monster movements made on a computer in 1981. So you get to the end of the level 15, and you get this screen. I've earned the title of Quester, whatever that means. So the game's not really considered canon, so it doesn't tie into the rest of the series in any way, but it's still a fun genre. I honestly had more fun with this than Ultima 2, maybe mostly because I didn't feel like it was too cheap and it stuck to what it was. I'd recommend this to anyone who wants to play a piece of gaming history, and especially anyone interested in the history of the Ultima series. It doesn't contribute anything to the series lore-wise, but it'll always be interesting, especially because of its rarity and interesting development history. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.